Good afternoon, everyone. I can see that people are starting to join. Hi, and welcome to our webinar on how to win loyal clients. And also a big welcome to Jax Davey today, who's our guest speaker. Thank you very much for joining us.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. And yes, hello to all of the audience who are joining as well. We have the chat open, so do feel free to leave us a message to let us know if there's anything that you're hoping to get out of today's session, any questions that you might have on your mind, and we'll obviously do our best to try and focus in on what's on your mind. Just whilst we're waiting for people to join, Jax, I understand that you did like a small little jog across some snow recently, something like that?
Yeah, did a ice ultra marathon. So we got back about 4 weeks ago. So my body's slowly starting to return to normal. And I'd first run back this week, but took about 2 weeks. My feet were double the size. I couldn't fit into normal shoes. But,
My goodness. And
yeah,
how many kilometers did you run?
230 kilometers across the Arctic Circle. So temperatures were about -30, -33 some of the days. And we ran for
Wow.
about 10 to 14 hours a day, carrying all your food, equipment, safety, extra layers, everything.
Crikey.
Yeah, a cold shift.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. I saw your footage on LinkedIn from it. If anyone hasn't seen it yet, I'd highly recommend that you go to Jax's LinkedIn page. We'll share the link to that later. But yeah, it looks extraordinary, and kudos to you. I'm not sure that many people could manage something with that amount of endurance in it.
Worth doing. If anyone wants a challenge, it's a great one because you're not just focusing on the running, you're looking around and seeing the moose, the reindeers, we saw a lynx, a little snow lynx one of the nights that we stayed
Oh,
in one of the cabins. So it's
wow.
just an insane
Wow.
experience. And yeah, it's
Amazing.
really cool.
Yeah. I mean, all I've done is a half marathon across the London parks. So I feel like I've got something to aim for now, but I don't
Yeah.
know, maybe something in between that and what you did, I think. Cool. Well, we'll do introductions now. So very, very happy to welcome you, Jax. So Jax is CEO of a purpose-driven agency called Nuevo. Before that, you were in the military. You've been recognized as a Forbes 30 under 30 honoree. And of course, in your spare time, you run ultra marathons across the Arctic. I'm your host. My name's Helen, Helen Fairley. I co-founded a digital agency that I ran for over a decade that I sold back in 2020. And I decided to join the team here at Scoro. I use Scoro in my agency and it was a real game changer, so much so that I'm now part of the team here. Today, we're going to be hearing all about Jax's story and his agency Nuevo's story and the mission that they had to become the world's kind of most purpose-driven agency, or business rather. We'll be covering things such as how you can gain a competitive edge, how to get your team on board with your mission, how to overcome common hurdles, moving from that kind of startup to established business, and of course, how to really find and gain long-term loyal clients. I'm just going to have a quick look and see if anything is in the chat. Not quite yet, but if any questions come up throughout the course of the next hour, please feel free to pop them into the chat. So I'd like to start off, Jax, by asking you how it all started with Nuevo. If this was a comic book, what is your origin story?
It's a super strange kind of entry into the advertising world for me. So I left school 17, fancied a bit of a challenge, and just as I was thinking that, I had a TV commercial came on the screen. It was 99.9 need not apply, and it was for the Royal Marines, and I was just hooked. I was obsessed with it. I started training for it, and a couple of months later, I was down at Lympstone, went through the 8 months training, and became a Royal Marines commando. Went to different units, 40 Commando, 4-2, and then Hamworthy, and spent 5 years traveling around the world with the Marines, which was incredible. Absolutely loved it. And the last kind of draft I had, I was put on a couple of different courses, close protection, evasive driving instructor, and surveillance. And during the surveillance course, I got shown how to use a camera and became obsessed. And I started shooting every weekend for local clothing brands like technical jackets, head torches, backpacks, whatever it was, and started building a bit of a client base. And I was just doing it for free, really, and getting loads of free products. Got to the point where our lounge was just full of free products. And I was like, right, I'm going to try and charge and just see what happens. And I went out and said, I'm going to charge now. And all of them said, yep, how much? Let's carry on this relationship. And I was like, oh, I think I've stumbled across a business here. And at that point, I decided to leave the Marines at 23 and thought, if it all goes wrong, I'll just do a fitness test and I'll join back up. And I'm exactly where I was. And we started working out that we had a bit of a niche, that with our backgrounds and skill sets, we could get kind of teams into remote, hard, hostile locations relatively easy. And we started winning kind of bigger contracts and started doing TV commercials for Garmin, for example. And then we won a contract with the military, the government, kind of a kind of secret part of the military, basically. And we did all the in-house recruitment drives, which made us really strategic for some of the big players in that space. And within 2 years, I sold the company to Berkshire Hathaway. And during that kind of whole sale process, I kind of learned what they were doing, and they were selling technology into the defense sector. Took a look at it, and I was like, I don't think the lads I worked with would use that, because you're trying to gamify weapon systems, and you want to use what you're going to use on the day. So they turned around, offered me a job. I stepped inside as chief operating officer, and I spent 2 years basically building virtual reality mission planning tools for the military. And it got to a point where I sat there and on camp going, hang on, I left to be a creative, and now I'm back on military camps pitching to colonels, for example. So I was like, I need to go back into the creative space, but I wanted this same level of purpose I had in that role. I was literally building technology that would save people's lives. And I was like, how can I take that same purpose to my passion for creativity? And it was at that point, we're on a big production, 60 odd people, and we're still just going along with the film, the normal way people do things. And I noticed the creative director was pulling things out of the set. And when I asked if, one, can we help? Two, what you're doing? She said, I'm just trying to move things out and make it look a little bit more sustainable. And I looked behind me, and there was floodlights, generators, 4x4s, burger vans. And I was like, can't we sort that out? And she was like, no, you need that for a production this size. And obviously before, we were getting lean teams into remote locations. So we said, we don't need all the fluff around these productions. And that was where the idea started, that we had a skill set that could lower the carbon footprint of these productions through better planning. And we started getting obsessed with it. And that was where Nuevo was born. And the original idea was, let's go out there to create a new template, framework, blueprint, whatever you want to call it, to change the way productions are done and they're managed and logistically planned. And we started looking at really cool ways of like not going on recce's at all. We started doing everything over virtual reality and planning it, doing a bit of social media scraping to work out like intelligence packages on a location so you didn't have to fly there. We started getting obsessed with tracking all the carbon of a project. We were looking at kind of logistics, where we were staying, what we were traveling in, how many people we had on the ground, where we were sourcing our stuff. We started renting land from local farmers and things rather than people that would do it for big movies and television around the world. We started using kind of all the food and drink that would normally just be wasted. We started donating to local food banks and shelters, and we tried to loop as much purpose into everything we did, and it started to work really well. And then over the next 3 years, we just introduced strategy and creative, and out of really a need from the clients we work with, whenever there was a demand, we kind of grew into that space. And now we're 3 years down the line, and still working with some of the best brands in the world on, one, lowering the carbon footprint of their advertising, and then two, we're kind of pushing into now is using their influence to change consumer behavior for the better.
Fantastic. Yes, it's certainly not, the normal story. Become a Royal Marine, become an agency founder. Not the normal path, but I can absolutely see how like some of the very unique skills that you learn in that time have opened up such a kind of brilliantly unique angle for you, and it's very clear how passionate you are about sustainability and all of this as well, which we'll definitely touch on later as well. What I'd like to ask you about next is kind of what were some of the problems that you ran into in those early days? So when you were just kind of figuring things out and the opportunities were coming in, like what were some of the challenges that you ran into back then?
It was definitely because we went so bold with we're going to be the most purpose-driven agency in the world. It was like we put that vision out there to the world, and then there's a whole different thing actually realizing it. And so what it meant was where, as a startup, you have to be very agile and very take whatever work there is there to build that cash pot and reinvest into the company. We had to be very strict of who we worked with and why. And we had to basically, so we turned away a lot of work, which is horrible to do for a startup. So we had to be very disciplined on who we were working with and the reasons why. And we started developing a few ideas around kind of, okay, we need a process. So when brands come to us, which is a great problem to have, we need to make sure their brands are tomorrow. And what we mean by that is brands that we think are good for planet or people. And they're the brands of tomorrow, and we want to make them famous today. So we started bringing what we call the Nuevo code into play, which was where the team could all sit round and vote basically whether we work with a client. And there's a few things it goes through, kind of what sector they're in, how do they treat their staff, employees, how do they do business, and is it a product or a service that we think will help? And if it is, then everyone votes and we get behind it. And then what you get is full 100% buy-in from the whole team that are going to be on that project. But bringing that in as a founder in the early stages when you're just trying to build that cash up in the bank, and it's like turning work away is horrible, but we knew it'd build kind of long-term longevity and value by committing to that kind of process. That was definitely a struggle and an eye-opening. The other thing was 3 years ago, it wasn't really talked about sustainable marketing and what it is, as there is like the demands there today. Back then it wasn't. So we really underestimated how much education we had to go through and talk about the problems that are out there and how we are one of the solutions, where people didn't even see it as a problem. People were just obsessed with all the other parts of their supply chain. They just thought agencies, marketing, advertising is just something over there that it just can do what it wants because we just need the end product or the end result. So there was a lot of education that had to go into it, and we had to work with CMOs a lot on, let's just take baby steps. And then when they actually see that it doesn't cost more and it isn't loads more resources, and actually it can fit into an organization, and you get another story, which is a byproduct of it, and all this that great stuff that comes with it, then all of a sudden they start buying into it, and then you can do the bigger projects with them and you're trusted then. So that took longer than we thought as well. But yeah, I think any startup's going to have the different challenges, whatever it is. But I think they were the ones that stood out for me.
Yeah. And I mean, I've been there myself. It's one of the hardest things when you need that cash and when you have bills to pay, to turn away a nice prospect of a nice juicy paycheck. And then on top of that, also having to educate potential clients that there's a need for sustainable marketing in the first place. It felt like, you had a fair amount of challenge in those early days, but of course we know that you're still here now, so all of the hard work that you put into it paid off. When was it that you started to kind of notice this shift from all of these early startup finding our way educational kind of things that you were doing for potential clients and into being and feeling more of an established business?
It was definitely when we started going from the smaller productions into bigger productions. Then when we brought strategy in, that was a big step up for us, because then we were sitting at the kind of the boardrooms and the senior tables, and we were having real kind of insights into how these businesses are ran and adding value. And it was like, okay, we're now with the grown-ups all of a sudden. It was like at the start we were kind of trusted with, here's a 1-day shoot or a 2-day shoot, and that was a big step up where we have more opportunity here to add serious value. So that was a big step up for us. So then the second thing was, around 2 years ago, I got in front of Stephen Bartlett and told him about the vision for the agency and what we wanted to achieve. And he invested and became a shareholder in Nuevo. And that was a big step up for us as well, because it gave us this kind of kick of like, you can do this, you need to believe in yourself, like you have got something great. And he has been a great mentor to me to go and just get out there and do it and stop holding yourself back. And that definitely gave us the confidence to go out there and say, why can't we speak to the world's biggest brands? Like we know we can add value here. And that was probably more in our own minds, but that was a step change for us to say, well, why are we going for that when we can be this ambitious? And then when we started down that road, we carried confidence into the rooms we were pitching in, and we started winning bigger and bigger bits of work. So I think that was a big step as well about 2 years ago.
Yeah. I guess, you can't truly grow and become more established if you don't have that confidence in you and to begin with. That's kind of the starting point. And can you tell us a bit more about, once you'd kind of gained this confidence, had this incredible backing from Stephen, could see that you were getting involved in, bigger projects, etc. Like, what kind of operational changes took place within the business to make sure that you could deliver to these, bigger projects, still with the same amount of passion and consistency and quality service that you were back in the early stages?
So that was like an ongoing process that's still, I think, you're always refining, redefining how you do things like that to keep everything in check. And I think that's just an agency thing, right? That you're always changing and tweaking, getting better. But we did about a year worth of what we called growing up. We had no transparency really over what we were doing from where are we making money, what's our margins, what's our resourcing like, anything like that. So we went through a year of kind of pulling in more senior people that knew how to do that. And then we started actually breaking down roles and responsibilities in the team. And when we started doing that, then people could take ownership of different areas of the business. And then we just tied that to KPIs and everything that we were going after, so everyone knew exactly what their role was in the business. So that was a big process. You can see my little 2-year-old trying to get in. And that was a big process that we were going through to, like, try and understand how we actually forecast and how we can plan for the future of things. So that was the biggest thing for that, was trying to bring in new systems and new ways of working, new processes. And I'm the worst for it. I'll just kind of get an idea and chuck an idea out there, and then onto the next thing. And the team are very good at going, whoa, right, let's get this in writing. Let's make it a project plan. Let's do, and try and slow it all down. So I just kind of shout it out there and assume everyone understands, but it just doesn't happen like that. So people like Ben in our business are just what I call the glue, or what we'd call in the military, the link men, that just pass on all the messages and make sure everyone's pushing in the same direction. So it was bringing key people in like that who could hold it together and be the glue to the organization. Was definitely a big learning point for us as well.
Yeah. And how easy was it to find those, like, the right people? Was it very quick? Did it take a while?
No, so it's very quick. So that's the other thing about, by going for something that stands out and going for something quite challenging, risky, daring, like whatever you want to call it, like trying to create something new in a space, is what it does is attracts good people. So it makes recruiting very, very easy. So we've never had a problem with recruiting. And I think it's because we've gone out on such a mission and a vision that people want to be associated with that journey and that story. And that was one of the things that Stephen said to me, is like, as a CEO, you need to create, 1, partnership opportunities, 2, recruitment needs to be easy, because people need to know who you are and what you do. And then new business, if you're done right for your personal brand, should bring in leads, because people will fall in love with your story more than a brand, because people don't want to be sold to, right? So there was like 3 pillars that he was like, if you focus on that as a CEO, that's you doing your job well. So that was something we started really leaning into around a year and a half ago. And so one of them pillars is recruitment. So we always had the ability to get the best people to come and join our mission quite easily.
I'd say it's a nice kind of condensing of responsibilities, because sometimes when you're leading a business, it feels like there are so many things that people are telling you are important, whereas to actually focus on these 3 core things sounds like quite a refreshing and focused way to approach it. So were you finding that people were approaching you then, like in terms of the recruitment, you were getting the right type of people who were in line with your values, just kind of getting in touch rather than having to go down the traditional routes of posting jobs, working with recruiters, etc.?
Yeah, so what we found is people just came to us, and we still get it now, a couple of messages a day when people just go, came across your agency, it's a breath of fresh air. And a lot of them have been feeling something in their jobs for a long time, where they go, we could be doing more here, or why aren't we moving quick enough? And what they will actively do is go and search for agencies like us that are trying to make that difference and go, I want more than just pay now in my role. I want to have a purpose. I want to feel good about the work I do. And I think the whole lockdown and COVID piece was a big shake up for that. People came out of that saying, actually, I want to be stood for something here. I want to do something that's bigger than myself in a role. And it was like, that for us was perfect because we just had this wave of people, the best brains that were like, I don't want to go back to London in an office and just work on a tobacco campaign. Like I want to come and use my skill set for good. And it was like, so it allowed us to kind of go through and go, actually, let's have a look at the people that are coming to us and then filter what roles we needed.
Amazing. And, you know, the kind of title of our webinar was how to win loyal clients, but, you know, hand in hand with that, you can't, you know, deliver work to loyal clients if you don't actually have a loyal and talented team in place. So
yeah,
that's really good to hear. You talked about how as kind of part of transitioning from a kind of small startup to something more established, you brought in people, you kind of divided roles and responsibilities. Could you tell us a little bit more about that and kind of how it was you approached that process of kind of separating those things out, and how to kind of make it clear what people's roles were, how to you know, make people want to be accountable? How did that all work on a practical level?
It was hard. It was a long, hard process that I think we made a lot of mistakes along the way. It was we were like known for production, then all of a sudden you drop strategy in there, and luckily James, our strategist that came across, had some great loyal clients that came with him. So straight away had this launch pad to go and say, this is the Nuevo, the new way of doing things. And he was incredible that he managed to jump in and kind of take what our vision was and say, this is how it shows up in the strategy world, and got obsessed with that. And then he started really showing that to the clients, and they all grew from there. So that worked really well. Whereas creative was a lot harder to try and sell into production, because we'd go to our clients and say, hey, we now have creative services. And they're like, yeah, we got that sorted. Like, we just want to use you for production. So that was a lot harder sell than we thought it would be. And then what we tried to do is say, right, there's a lead for each one of those. And then you have the engine room, the project managers and account managers that link into that. And some of it worked on the strategy side, some of it didn't work so much on the creative side. So we've been kind of playing around with how that model works, and we're still kind of testing and adjusting. But we've kind of gone back now to a much more flat kind of model. We started kind of changing managerial positions around and things, and it just overcomplicated. We liked it when we were really entrepreneurial and agile and lean, and everyone would speak to everyone, and we had the WhatsApp group firing, the Slack channels, and everyone was just fully engaged the whole time and could ask any question. And we've kind of gone back to that now after a year of trying to remold. And I think what you fall into a trap is trying to be a grown-up agency before your time. And it's like, what I've learned now is, if you don't need to be that yet, don't be it yet. Like, it's not a nice thing to be a big heavy oil tanker of a business, right? So just stay lean and stay agile and have that open line of communications, but anyone could say anything, suggest anything. The best ideas are coming from all the different angles in the company. But it's taken a year of pain almost, of like trying to force ways of working to get to that point where we're like, you know what, like why do we have to become what other people come? Like, why can't we keep it as we are and then figure out as we go? And that all comes back to having good communication about what the teams are doing and when they're doing it, to allow that to happen, and having people you can trust. I think we've been very lucky that the people in the company are like 100% have each other's back. They're completely trusted in their roles. They're better than me at every single role in the company. So there's no point me getting involved, right? Because they'll just do a better job than me anyway. So it means that we can all just have our own part of the ship to look after it. And then when you're given that kind of authority, that like to have that's your part of ship, they're a lot more empowered to say, right, I'm going to do the best job I possibly can because I need my bit working really well. We're going to go together where we all want to be. So then it's just my job, hopefully, then is to just keep pointing the ship in the right direction and aligning the visions and going, come on, we can get there, especially in a down market like last year that was hard. It was just brutal for everyone in the industry, I think. So everything became a lot more reactive than you would want it to be, and it became fast paced. And there was just so many of like, oh, this is going to happen. No, it's not, last minute.
Right.
Because everyone just stopped buying, and then the marketing spend just gets cut straight away. So that's hard. And I think it's times like that, like the last year we've just been on, that shapes a good company. Because you know, if you're surviving it and you're getting through it,
Yeah.
you're going to survive in future when everything starts moving again. But it allows you to kind of look at it as what really is working, what's not working, and kind of get to a point where everyone's a lot more. There's no like winning fluff, I call it, of all the nice stuff that comes where you're winning, where you don't have to look hard at stuff. Whereas
Yeah.
you go for a tough year and you just get straight to the root of problems, or you get straight to, wow, you see the value in someone that you didn't even know about fully. And then all of a sudden you see the value of, wow, bring them up to the company. So I think hard years like last year are needed really to see the true value within the company.
Yeah. And, how did you survive it? I'm kind of getting the impression that, maybe there were certain periods where you had work lined up and suddenly there was no work. You've still got a team. Like what did you do to kind of keep going, keep the team intact and come out stronger?
I think when it does get really hard, I think you just take a day each day as it comes. And I think you get into the mindset where you turn up and you're kind of next to the people that are battling with you and go, right, another day, let's see what we can do today. Let's find the solutions today. And when you break it down like that, it suddenly becomes a lot more achievable and doable. We also, the way we structured ourselves and the way we wanted to think about it was we need to be agile and lean here. And we found some really nice projects in like the comms check that we launched, which was helping brands kind of talk about their sustainability journey and their messaging. So that became a really busy part of the workload for us. So what we managed to do was win 2 or 3 clients off the back of that, where we'd look at all their sustainability journey and then say, right, rather than that just turning up with a white paper that sits at the back of your website that no one's going to engage with, how do we turn that into emotive storytelling pieces that's going to drive consumer trust and get all your employees on board and fall in love with the journey you're on? Because sustainability is a new space where it's not the typical marketing where you just shout louder than your competitor and you win. It has to be transparent. It has to be honest. It has to be humble. It has to be talked about in a way that you're on the journey. You can't claim to have it all figured out right. So it needed a different team to come in with another creative lens and say, hey, this is how you should tell this. And actually by doing that, a lot of the times the marketing creative teams come and go, actually, that's not boring that we keep trying to get handed that bit of work. It can be quite interesting. So a lot of our work was around how do we make that live and breathe throughout the whole brand, and how does it show up at different touch points for consumer and the employees, and then retain the marketeers that also want to stand for something and have more purpose in the work they do. So stuff like the comms check that we released on Nuevo 360, which was trading up marketing departments and thinking about sustainability in a different way. And that way was about saving resources, saving money, re-looking at campaigns they've done before and reusing some of that incredible work. And it's like looking at it in a different way that became a product that we started doing last year that brought us through. But the only reason we were able to do that and survive was launching new products that were needed in a time in the market where people stopped spending on big shoots and went, okay, let's just use this time to double down and be more resourceful. Perfect. Sustainability could be resourceful, and then acted quite quickly on it.
Yeah, it's easy when the times are good to just keep doing what you're doing, keep having the money roll in. When the good times stop, it kind of forces you to rethink, reevaluate. It kind of forces your hand to be more innovative and think about new routes, new products, new angles. So maybe rather than being apprehensive of the thought of tough years, not that we would ever necessarily wish to have them, actually there can be even better things that come out of them in the long term.
Yeah, you come out much stronger. And I always say now, like as a CEO, the 4 years as a CEO before the kind of Nuevo was when we were winning. I've learned so much more in the last 12 months for a hard year than I did in 4 or 5 years of winning and getting the Forbes in the 30 and the Great Entrepreneur Award and stuff. And it's like, that means nothing when you have a tough year and you come out the end of that, you're like, okay, now I'm a CEO. Like, we're weathering that. I've learned so much more.
Amazing. And as a reminder, everyone, if you do have any questions or if anything has come to your mind that you would like to share, do feel free to pop it in the chat, which we've got open for everyone. Next, I'd really like to turn to the topic that is certainly kind of core to. Can I just check? Am I pronouncing? Is it Nuevo or Nuevo?
We get this everywhere, so it's up to you. But Nuevo is how we see it, like the new evolution of creatives and marketers.
Nice, nice. So let's talk about sustainability. What tips would you be able to share with other businesses? And I'm specifically thinking about kind of service-based businesses here rather than like manufacturing, about what we can all be doing to become more sustainable, how we can measure sustainability and the impact of our efforts. What can you share with us?
So there's amazing things out there now that you can become part of that helps you like along the journey and takes you
Hmm.
at a deeper dive, kind of look at your business and what things you need to be doing differently. So B Corp, for example, is a perfect thing to be part of and go
Yeah.
down that process. That made us look internally hard at what we were doing and going, actually, are we doing things right or are we doing things wrong? We were quite lucky early on that like employee number 5 or 6, I think it was, we brought in a sustainability manager.
Hmm.
That could upskill the whole team. So I wanted a level of kind of sustainability knowledge across everybody that touches every single project. So
Yeah.
it meant we were really thinking in a different way because that was our point of difference, right? So I really wanted to
Hmm.
invest heavily in that. But there's so much stuff out there online that you can just start learning about what's going on out there. Like one of the best things you could do right now is go and look at Exeter University, for example. They've just announced a study that we're helping them market and connect to the masses on global tipping points. So it's 3 to 5 like negative tipping points. If they
Hmm.
tip, it's irreversible damage and it's bad. But what I like about it is then they've talked about the 5 global positive tipping points. So
Hmm.
if we see a shift in society and we take on those positive tipping points, we can counteract a lot of the damage that's being done. And it's like
Hmm.
it's a really positive way of looking at it, and it gives you the tools and it gives you the ideas of okay, this is what we need to do to move things into a better position.
Hmm.
So there's stuff like that that's just openly and readily available, which can give you a good foundational knowledge on what to do. And then in the agency space, there's a lot of kind of agencies. All you need to do is type it in, purpose-driven agencies that are coming through that are like specialists in different areas that are doing some
Hmm.
great work, that can teach you about how to do it more in your either productions, your creative, your strategy, or whatever it is.
Hmm.
We've got this 10-point creative thing that I can send you the link after if you like. And it's kind of 10 steps we take called conscious creativity to look at
Hmm.
things differently when we handle briefs and things. So I can send that across to you and you can share that. But the kind
Fantastic.
of day one thing that we would say to people is just start trying to understand where your damage or your impact's coming from, where your carbon
Hmm.
footprint's coming from, and then start going, is there any alternative ways that I could do this maybe a little bit differently? And then once you start going down that journey of understanding, it becomes quite addictive because you go, God, look at the positive impact I've had, and it didn't actually take much more work at all.
Hmm.
And then you actually
Hmm.
start finding that the smarter you get with it, it actually saves money as well because you stop, from a production point of view, for example, you stop flying 60 people out and you go,
Hmm.
fly 5 out and we're going to get locally sourced crews to come and help. We're just going to brief them very well online beforehand. And it's like, then you start looking at the margins and numbers you're making as well and go, okay, sustainability is an expensive add-on.
Hmm.
Actually, it's a very smart way to do business.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, they're the kind of starting points I would say. But the first protocol is just start Googling and YouTube, and there's so much you can learn on there.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned so this study with the 5 damaging tipping points and the 5 positive tipping points. Where can we
Yeah.
find more information about that?
If you type in Exeter University global
Hmm.
tipping points, and
Yeah.
then there's free to download all the packs. They've done a great video series on all the different tipping points and what it is. But if you were going to just put an hour into it, that's incredible just to go and learn because you
Mm.
learn about the bad stuff and the good stuff. And what I like about it, it doesn't leave you, there's so much doom and gloom around sustainability, right? And that's
Hmm.
why people are switching off to it. Something like 97% of the world's media around sustainability and climate change focuses on the problem. And that's
Hmm.
why people are just switching off to it because you just watch it and feel useless. You think,
Yeah.
I can't do anything to help that. So we need to start switching the narrative to more positive kind of solutions about what we can do. Like we know the damage is there, but what can we actually do now today to give it a positive impact and actually
Hmm.
help finding
Hmm.
solutions for it? So that's why I love that study because it's there going, we know it's bad, but here's the solutions to get us out of here. And that's something for us, like the big shift going forward will be we won't be creating anything that's doom and gloom or bad. It'll be always highlighting the solutions out there. And one of the bigger pieces the bigger role we want to play in the world is finding the solutions to the world's biggest problems and helping them
Hmm.
connect them to the masses and audiences through global social media trends, for example.
Hmm.
So that's kind of where we're kind of engineering ourselves in the world to be. So we have a really important role.
Amazing. And in terms of kind of your thoughts around how to create a business that, you know, long term is gonna be able to grow, expand, you know, continue to deliver, like how thinking about sustainability in a business context now, what are your thoughts around, you know, some of the key things that we all need to be considering so that we can, you know, thrive in the future, take our team with us, take our clients with us, you know, not get burnout in the process?
Well, if you look at the way the world's going, the next generation that are coming through are just super, super into sustainability. They have more knowledge than ever. They're more connected than ever. They believe in their voices and are not scared to call things out and make a stand for something. So I think the businesses that stand for something are the ones that will survive. I think there's no longer a time where you can just sit on the fence and say, we'll just see how it goes, because they're smart, right? They're going to start looking back and going, have you been authentic from day one? What have you actually got into this journey for? So I think the brands that actually stand for something now and commit to it, yeah, it's a slower start. You won't get the rapid growth because it takes time to build that kind of transparency, that authenticity, that honesty in the industry, and it takes a little bit longer. But what you get then is a very valuable brand that has a voice, and I think that's what is very valuable at the moment. Actually having a voice and standing for something, being known for something. So I would say the businesses that are coming into this space now, just pick something you really truly believe in and stand for that. And I think actually business is hard. It's super hard. It's harder than the Marines, and it's just a battle every day. And I think if you pick something you're passionate about, it makes it a whole lot easier, because you're going to have the kind of the dark times and the bad times. And if you can just get out of bed every morning and go, actually, this was the mission I'm going on, this is the reason why, I think it makes it a lot easier. And I think you need that when you're trying to launch a business in today's landscape. So yeah, there's one that it will help actually the business survive because people believe in it and people want to support it and want to back it. Recruitment, it's easier to retain when people feel like they're part of a mission that's bigger than just making profits for a company. And three, as a founder or CEO or senior leadership, you need something you believe in, and you need something that's bigger than the company, so you can weather the storms that you're going to get along the way.
I'd be curious to kind of know your thoughts. So you started Nuevo like with your mission and with your purpose, but how easy it is it, let's say you've already got an established business and an agency, and you know it might have started 20-30 years ago, and you have a number of people in that kind of, you know, leadership position. Have you come across many businesses who have been in the established position who've then had to take it back, you know, to scratch and go, actually, out of the, you know, however many people in the senior leadership team, what is it that we stand for? How do you identify that shared purpose? Have you come across, you know, businesses who've been through that?
Yeah, we have. And a lot of clients that we work with that have kind of gone through that process actually have a purpose deep down in there somewhere, or something that their data, for example, could be used for to have a massive positive impact somewhere in the world. And it's just unlocking that and then going, hey, like, this is you, but it's just showing up in a different way. And it's something we can really get behind and incentivize the team and everyone truly believe in and go on this new mission. It gives it another kind of lease of energy through the business when you go, we have got a purpose. We just buried it because we've been trying to survive for 10 years. And it's there's a lot of that we help kind of pull that out and go, actually, that's the United Nations sustainability goals here, and you're doing this and you're already doing that. This is great. Let's bring that front and center. And it's just reworking how they see things. When businesses come to us that aren't good for the planet or people at all and say we need to change tack quickly, that's then when it doesn't pass the codes. We don't work on anything like that because we're just like, we don't see a place in the future for that, as hard as it sounds, but we can't get excited by that. You're just kind of putting a band-aid over a problem rather than actually dealing with it. So yeah, I can't talk to the other one, but I can definitely talk to the one that brands that are just in the position where they go, we need to find a purpose. We really do help with understanding what that is. And it has to come through a place of authenticity and actually speaking to the people that founded that company or are leading it, going, what do you believe in? What do you get excited about? What are you passionate about? Because when you're going to go on this journey and make something your new purpose and try and do good in the world, it is going to take long. It's going to take a lot of effort, might cost some money, depending where you're starting from and everything, but it's worth it if you get it right.
Yeah. And I guess that is the difference between a value and a marketing gimmick. A value is something that actually is deep down inside you, that dictates how you've grown the company, you know, how you choose to act, who you're doing business with. You know, you might not even be aware of it. It's so deep down, it's just, you know, a subconscious thing driving you as a force from behind, but it's still there, as opposed to something that someone just feels sounds good and might hopefully, you know, win some more money for them. So well, that's good to know. And so yeah, there's definitely like a running theme in everything that we've been discussing today about this kind of importance of like really understanding yourself, like your true self, you know, your values, you know, and knowing what it is that differentiates you. Like, is it fair to say that you think that that has kind of been the main reason for the success that you've got and where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely been a conversation starter when I've managed to get an audience with senior people in the business you want to work with, because I think they ask the question like, how the hell is next Royal Marine sat here pitching us marketing from an agency? But like, I think it's like them going, actually, I just want to figure that bit out. I don't want to work with him. I just want to figure how he got from there to then. So it's a good conversation starter to get in the room, and then it's quite quickly we have to add value and say something that gets the hook to go, please give us a chance to work with us. So I definitely think that's good. And what we learned is when we worked that angle and we talked about my background and stuff, it was getting us a lot more pickup quicker and getting us an audience quicker. So then that's when we started learning, going, okay, let's dial up that story and really lean into that. And then doing the Stephen Bartlett deal and things, it was his mentoring was like, you need to double down on your story. That's the thing that can't be copied. Like that's the thing you own, and that's something that's really different. So if you can find a way to lean into that and make that work, then your business will be a lot more successful. And it's true, we're in a space now where people don't want to be sold to. So you can post from a brand's page and it's like, won't get much pickup, but then you post from your personal with an honest insight into how you feel about something, and it gets much more traction. And people just want to deal with people, and people want to feel aligned when they're purchasing something from someone or a business. So about a year and a half ago, we really started dialing in on the personal brand front and said, well, let's just bring this personality front and center and be honest about the journey through entrepreneurship, about from the veterans into what we're doing today, and or for the love for kind of ultra running or hard endurance things. It's like, let's bring that front and center. And what you've found is like you start to gravitate towards other people in the industry that share similar beliefs. And then all of a sudden you start working with them and you're off to a much better partnership straight away because you share the same values and beliefs. Like there's Professor Tim Lenton, who's one of the best scientists in the world around climate change, and completely different worlds. Like he's so intelligent, and then I just rock up as an ex-Marine that can barely write a letter, and we turn up and we just hit it off straight away because he loves ultra running. And we were talking about Dartmoor, and I was like, I ran 30 miles across there for the Royal Marines test. He was like, I run there and I run, and straight away it just broke down barriers. And then they were sat together and said, how do we connect your science to the masses? And it became this collaboration project and stuff. So if we didn't align then on the personal stuff that we liked, it would have been harder to get that off the ground because I didn't go to uni. He like spent all his life in unis. And it was like such different worlds. So yeah, I think personal brand's the biggest driver to create an awareness of a business if it's done right.
Yeah. And kind of linking this into, you know, our topic for today of how to win loyal clients, it kind of seems like it's less about even thinking about that in the first place. Don't think of it as trying to win business, make a sale, sell to someone. It's actually be yourself, understand what you stand for, you know, communicate your voice and your position on things. And by being in line with all of that and getting yourself out there, you're naturally going to come into contact with people who, you know, have that same baseline as you, and then it's not even necessarily a case of having to battle someone down or win someone's trust. The trust is there, and then any conversation around business, I imagine, becomes a whole lot easier.
A lot more relaxed, because you're always like, the hardest part of them conversations, especially from an agency and a potential client, is the first couple of lines, like, how do I approach this? But when you have a shared kind of I don't think you have a shared kind of like common ground or something, that's just, then you start talking about it naturally, then you're already in the flow and you start talking about working together. So it's such a good way in to have these conversations when people know about you, because you've got a presence on online, and you're talking about what you're doing outside of work as well.
Yeah. One final question from me before we turn to questions from the audience. So I can see there's one that's come in so far. Anyone else, do feel free to share. If you've got a question or even just like some thoughts, do feel free to share it. One thing I wanted to quickly ask you about, obviously representing Scoro, I'm going to ask this question. You use Scoro at your agency, and what were the kind of key reasons that made you choose Scoro? Why did you think it would be a good fit for you, and how does it really help your company?
So the ops team were tasked with finding a system that will give us kind of transparency across all the projects we do, and they came back and they were like, "Yep, we're gonna run with Scoro." So that's when we took it on. And I guess the thing for us is the whole transparency piece of knowing exactly where we are at any one time, and it's like a single source of truth that we can just go to and know where we are. And what we found by using it, and using it well, is it kind of reduces the amount of time we need to spend in status meetings and catch-up meetings, which frees up our time to go and do what we need to do actually on those accounts, or the creative ideas, or winning new business, or whatever it is. So that would definitely help. To then having everything in one place is an amazing tool to be able to just jump to and then find out exactly where we are. So there's no kind of this passing it around the houses. We just know exactly where it is and where we are. So that was part of the growing up phase we went through, and it was all about just clarity, transparency, and then the ability to share with the clients and things as well, so you know exactly where we are. That builds that trust when working with them, and it allows us like to look at and identify new ways that we might work together to speed things up or make it more effective.
Nice. I remember how overjoyed I was to finally get rid of 3 different systems, and I can't remember how many different spreadsheets we were using, but there were a lot, and just kind of replace it with everything under one roof. Super. So we have a question here from Harv. So I'll read it out loud. People, myself included, can be skeptical of brands talking about sustainability. Perhaps we've seen too much greenwashing over the years. There's maybe a fear that it's what brands talk about rather than what really stands through their actions. Do you see more companies making sustainability a core value? And do you see many brands making this a value that didn't have it at the start?
Yeah, definitely. I think we've now, due to consumer demand, they have to take it seriously. It's something people want, and they have the purchase power, right, where they can say, I'm not going to buy that, or I'm going to buy that product. So brands have to change, and they have to implement sustainability. So even the brands that start bringing it through now aren't lying. They have to change. They know they have to change. And you can quite honestly see, if you track something, whether they're in it for the right reasons or they're not. And it's all down to action. Are they just talking a good game, or are they actually out there doing it and changing their business and investing in it? And one of the things that kind of stands out to me is when you have the kind of £1 billion sized companies, then they've got one sustainability manager part-time, and you're like, come on, guys, like put a team around it, do it properly, implement it through the business. And like that's always quite a telltale sign. So yeah, I think we will see it popping up. We should see it popping up everywhere. Of every business out there, it has to be implemented into their strategy. And yeah, there has been a lot of greenwashing, but then that's also caused green hushing, where people aren't talking about their journeys, and that's bad, right? Because there could be a competitor sat there looking at their other competitors, thinking they're not doing anything, so I don't need to move yet. When they are, they just don't want to talk about it in case they get called out for greenwashing. So there's this this middle ground we need to find to empower people to talk about their journey, as long as it's done authentically and humble and transparently. It's like, just talk about it, because consumers care just as much about the journey as you are than the end destination. They know you're not going to figure it out straight away. They know it takes time. They're smart, right? So just tell them the journey you're on, and actually you'll find they'll support it more and suggest things, and you're building that consumer trust along the way. So yeah, I think it will carry on to pop up everywhere, which is a great thing. But
Yeah.
you will quite quickly, as more and more people get more and more savvy, people will get called out a lot quicker. And now with the regulations and everything, green claims code that are coming through, it makes it a lot harder for people to greenwash, which is good.
Excellent. A question from Michael. What has been key to helping you hold firm on working with clients that are in line with your brand and aspiration, and not working with just anyone? So I think you mentioned that you had this Nuevo, sorry, I'm pronouncing it wrong again.
That's all right.
Nuevo
definitely the code, because
yeah.
I think as a CEO, when times are hard and you're pressured to find the next project, it'd be easy to slip into that mindset of just going to take on this project and we'll go back to the purpose-driven stuff. And by giving the code the power to the people and the power to the agency to vote whether we go and work on a project or not, that temptation can't be there. So that allows us all to sit around and vote whether we go and work on something or not. And it means that we can't make short-term decisions that will affect the agency. So yeah, the code definitely has helped keep us on the straight and narrow of where we want to be. Then we just keep realigning ourselves. That we've always said from day one, we don't want to be the biggest agency. We don't want to have the most revenues, the most awards. We want to be the most important. We want to be the catalyst for change, and we want to transform the advertising industry. So for us, it was always like, well, by being the most important, we're not going to get there by making quick, silly decisions. We're going to get there by looking at the future and going, that's where we want to be in 10 years. Let's make the foundation strong, and let's make every step as best we can along the journey.
Yeah, and I think, it's highly likely that, all of us would feel the same way at that respect. I know I have been in situations where I've had to make a decision as to whether to take on a client or a project that I know isn't the right fit versus not being able to pay wages at the end of the month.
Yeah.
And those, I think, it's often not people choosing to go for a juicy paycheck, but kind of feeling that I've been backed into a corner, and if I want to survive and to do right by my team, then it's a rock and a hard place, really. I don't know if there's any kind of advice or experience or anything that you can share to businesses who might find themselves in like that real hard place.
Yeah, so we talk about this quite a lot, and I talk about it with Caitlin, our sustainability manager, and she makes a very good point. Like, being sustainable is also surviving. So sometimes you have to survive to fight another day, and that means dancing with the devil for a couple of months to get through to the next period. You have to look at the overall positive impact you're having, and it'd be such a shame for really purpose-driven businesses that have their heart in the right place to close up shop and stop working by taking one kind of short-term decision to try and just keep afloat and keep. I think this last year, and especially in the industry as it is, like, you have to find ways to survive. That has to come first. Then you can go back to what you are doing. So yeah, I don't look down on any of the agencies that go, we're just going to work with that. Obviously, if it's Shell or BP, it's different. But if you're just taking on some other projects that don't so much align with the values for short term, and it means survival, you're keeping people in employment, you're keeping people in jobs, you're keeping the vision and the mission alive. So yeah, don't be too hard on yourself. Just make it work to survive.
Amazing. We've got time for our last question from Olivia. So we see consumer expectations playing a huge role in B2C brand sustainability efforts and messaging. To what extent do you see the same in the B2B space?
Interesting. I'm trying to think how much B2B stuff we do. Yeah, I'll come back to you on that, because I think the best to ask James for that on the strategy. He covers off the B2B stuff more than kind of I'm across. But yeah, I'll come back to you and then you can share that.
Brilliant. Well, we'll certainly be sharing a follow-up email with everyone who has registered today. So if you are attending live, or if you haven't been able to join us live, but you're watching this in your own time, we'll also be sharing links to Jax's LinkedIn page. In fact, let's see if I can share my screen. as a technology wizard. Hopefully you can all see Jax's LinkedIn profile showing up here. We will share this with everyone as well. I'd highly recommend that you follow him on LinkedIn so that you can keep up to speed with all the exciting things that are coming up. I think there is something in the works for you that's even more impressive than an Arctic ice marathon. Am I right?
Yeah, something big coming. It's a collaboration project between the world's leading scientists and us to connect the masses to the science and solutions through big social media trends. So yeah, big project coming.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, we'll share the link in the follow-up email as well. Please also, if you aren't already, follow our page here at Scoro. We will be sharing some exciting updates from our side as well, including a new podcast. So if you follow us, you will find out about all of that as it happens. And we are pretty much ready to wrap up now. So, Jax, thank you so much for being so generous with your time and wisdom, and just for being so open with us all today. I've had a wonderful time speaking with you, and yeah, I hope the audience has gained a lot from it as well. So thank you so much.
No worries at all. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you everyone for joining it or who will watch it later. Really love having you here, love getting your questions through. So thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. Ciao for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.